Welcome to Agents of Screen, the first and only place to come to for movie reviews live at the cinema. And we've just finished watching Dr. Sleep, which is the sequel to the 1980s classic The Shining, which is based on the Stephen King novel of the exact same name. So let's get into our first impressions straight away. If you don't mind, I can go first. Is that all right?
Be my guest. You're the
Thank
host.
you very
Be my
much.
guest.
How generous is this guy? How generous is he? What I would say is the title of the film is Dr. Sleep. So I was getting ready to make all these kind of sleep jokes. It was so boring. This is a good medication to go to sleep, or some kind of sleep joke. But I enjoyed the film overall. And I also say, if you're a fan of The Shining, that this is a worthy successor to that film. Not saying it's a classic, but you know, it added to the lore, added to the story, added to the
100,
fiction.
100%.
All right. So what about you?
Yeah, you know, when I started watching the movie, I wasn't too sure what direction they were going in.
Okay.
You know, but they did turn it around. And like you just said there, Miles, if you're a fan of the original The Shining by Kubrick, yeah, you'll like this because they tie in so many elements and it just makes it work. So overall, I think I enjoyed the film, yeah.
If you don't sound 100% convinced, we're gonna find out why in a minute when we start getting into the likes and dislikes. So back to myself again, in terms of, yeah, I'm going first.
A lot of self-love tonight.
Self-love always. Self-love is very important.
Very important.
What I would say, one thing that I really enjoyed, kicking off the things that we did like, is that the child actress in the film, her name is Kaylee Curran, and doing my research, this is the first film that she's ever appeared in. I thought she was absolutely outstanding. You know, sometimes when you get child actors, they can be quite annoying, or they're not quite there yet, or you kind of have to kind of work with them. You know, there's like this saying in Hollywood, like, it's a nightmare to work with children and animals. But in this case, she done a fantastic job, and she was on par with the adult actors in the film.
I think she surpassed them.
She stole the show.
She did steal the show. She was the highlight of the movie. Her performance was outstanding. I was captivated by her performance. She had such attitude on camera, man. I think if Marcel Martin is her name?
Marcel Martin.
Yeah, Marcel Martin. I think you need to take some notes here. Kind of like, you know, give her a call. Get some lessons, man.
You son of a bitch.
No, I'm just saying, like, if she was in Little, but anyway, we're not talking about Little, but yeah, I completely agree with you there. Okay. She was incredible.
We're gonna stick with you. What else did you enjoy about the film?
So I liked, there was a lot of elements that they took from the original, from The Shining, and they tweaked it, they revisited it.
They did what, sorry?
Revisited.
Okay.
You know, like visit Rwanda.
It sounded like you said revisited it.
Well, like The Predator.
Yeah.
Coming to you live from the cinema where we have just watched The Predator, the full film in the Predator franchise.
Sorry.
What?
Just say The Predator again, because you said the Predator.
Well, just say The Predator again, yeah? Alright, ready? Where we have just seen The Predator.
Predator?
The Predator.
Predator.
Yeah.
Go on again.
The full film in the Predator franchise.
You're getting sick, bro.
Predator. The Predator.
That's it.
The Predator. So yeah, I really like that. So the music, some of the shots, some of the angles, it was very familiar from the original movie. So I liked what they did there.
I would say what you kind of call that is fan service.
Yeah, 100.
Nostalgia from the first film.
Good word, nostalgia.
But I thought that was both a good thing and a bad thing. I'll say why later in terms of the stuff that we didn't like. But in terms of there was a lot of fan service in the film, which I thought was really good. You touched on the music. I thought the soundtrack throughout the whole film, the kind of hits that they made with certain scenes, it complemented the scenes
Yeah, it was
perfectly.
good. They done very well with that.
Yeah.
Very well with that.
So I think it's definitely one of the soundtracks of the year, I think. One thing I also thought was good, how do I want to say this? Maybe the believability, because there was a lot of far-fetched things happening in this film, but they managed, I think, to still make it grounded at the same time. They managed to still execute it without it being ridiculous. I would never thought like, oh, this is, you know, I never thought at any point. That's just my opinion.
You know, respect your opinion and all that, you know, but while we're on the subject of likes, what you did, like, I got a question for you. So you said, you know, favorite horror film since Halloween last year. Would you say this is, you know, like up there as in that scary or more of a thriller?
Well, this is like a common thing with horror films. I don't think horror films necessarily have to be scary. That might sound ridiculous to say out loud, but a lot of horror films, they kind of rely on jump scares and stuff like that. I think this was more of like a cerebral thriller as opposed to a horror. But I thought that the atmosphere they created in the film was quite tense at times. You were hanging to see what would happen. So I thought they did that quite well in terms of... to answer your question, I didn't find it scary as such, but I found it thrilling. So it was more of a thriller, but it's still in the horror genre because of the supernatural things that are taking place.
No, cool. I concur. You know, at Agents of S.C.R.E.E.N, we're not a fan of cheap jump scares. We don't cheap.
It was a smart.
We don't want cheap thrills.
Yeah.
Unless
I know. So did you want to get into dislikes? You ready for that?
Yeah, man, let's go. Okay, so you speak about, you know, they made it believable, and although it's, you know, supernatural, they kept it grounded. I thought at certain points it was teetering on a bit, you know, the ridiculous. You know, so when they talk about The Shining and what The Shining is and how it works in the mind and all this, I think, yeah, brilliant. But then you've got the other aspect of the movie, the villains, we'll say, and what they're about and what they're up to and what they're doing. Man, just go away. Well, what is that?
Well, you weren't feeling them?
Nah, I weren't feeling the villains. I weren't feeling what they were about, what they were up to, their motives, how they were working. I thought, when you look at the original film, The Shining, how that we talk about, you know, psychological thrillers and slow tension and building, that was done it brilliantly. And now they fast forwarded to present day, but like, you know, what the villains are up to kind of took some of the charm away from The Shining, what The Shining is and what we know Shining to be. One
thing that I didn't really enjoy about the film was, and especially for people who haven't read the book, I think they didn't do as good a job of explaining why the villains were doing certain things.
Yeah, man.
They left it up to you to figure it out, but at the same time, they didn't give you enough clues to be like, okay, I finished watching the film, but I still don't know what they actually wanted. They didn't do a good job of explaining everything surrounding the villain, so that's still quite a bit of a mystery. So I would have liked a bit more of that. Something else that I didn't really enjoy, I think at the end I particularly felt it, I felt like the film was kind of long coming down to the end. Throughout the film, I didn't really feel like, okay, this is getting on a bit. But at the end, I felt like the length of the film, just a tad.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
It dragged just a tad at the end.
But yeah, I thought it was a slow build. The start of the film was a bit too slow.
I didn't mind it.
And I'll tell you something I didn't like, actually. So the film's called Dr. Sleep, and they do touch on why it's called Dr. Sleep. But it's a very small pot.
But in defense of that, what I would say is that the novel is called Dr. Sleep, so you don't have to keep the same name as a novel. But at the same time, you know.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So earlier I was talking about the fan service. There was something I didn't like. I felt at times they gave too much of it at times. Kind of bordered on the unnecessary. Obviously, it's nice to see nods to the original, and the nostalgia always makes the fans feel good, but I felt some scenes didn't need to be in the film at all. I think it was a little bit unnecessary, some of the fan service. I appreciated most of it, but at times it was a bit too much. That being said, let's get into our scores. Adam, I'll let you go first. I've been going first.
Whoa. Why the change of tune? You've been. I
spoke. I've been speaking for time. I'll give you a time. Equal rights.
How generous of you.
Equal rights. Okay.
Rights. No. I'm gonna take this.
It's bitch.
So my score for this film: slow start to the movie, but it did pick up very well, and it was very interesting how it was going to unfold. S.C.R.E.E.N, exceptional, great performance. These young actors and actresses are just getting better and better. You know, I weren't feeling the villains. I did like the nostalgia. I'm not gonna say I'm a huge fan of the first one, but I did enjoy the nostalgia. I thought it was quite clever the way they worked it. Good thriller. Scary, not at all. Do you have to go watch this film? Yeah, you should. It's a decent film. You'd enjoy it. I'll give it a 7.
Well, I'd say I won't go over too much what we've already said. MVP, S.C.R.E.E.N. But what I would say, should you go see this film, if you're a fan of The Shining, 100% spend your money to go see it. That being said, I'm going to cut a long story short. My score out of 10 is a 7.5. So our average score for Dr. Sleep is floating somewhere around here right now. What did you think of it? Make sure you let us know. If you like this video and like our content, make sure you like, share and subscribe. I've been your boy Miles as always.
I've been your boy Adam.
And we have been the Agents of S.C.R.E.E.N. until the next video coming very soon. Peace.
Get some shines.